Huge trade, obviously. We're all well aware of that, but this is actually the first time I've podcasted since Julio Jones became a Titan. So if you're up for it, I'd love to dig on in what you think is going to happen here, the impact for him, the impact of the Titans. I mean, when you get a talent like Julio, the most receiving yards per game in NFL history as of right now, that causes some pretty seismic impacts wherever he goes. So you willing to hit Julio Jones's impact with me over here? What do you think of him landing in Tennessee?
Julio, of course, was still a great player when healthy last year. Averaged 19 fantasy points per game, fourth most yards per route run among wideouts in those 7 full contests that he was available to play. But now he basically cannibalizes A.J. Brown and caps A.J. Brown's ceiling, whereas we initially thought A.J. Brown could finish as a top 3 wide receiver, if not potentially the wide receiver 1 overall. Yeah. Now Julio Jones is there to eat into those targets. And so I believe who it helps the most is Ryan Tannehill, who honestly people, myself included, were probably too down on to begin with. He was going as the overall QB 15 across best ball formats, no matter which site you play on. So I bumped him up. He stayed in the same tier, but I bumped him up as the overall QB 12 now. So basically a QB 1 because he still averaged a top 5 amount in fantasy points per drop back since he took over under Arthur Smith as the Titans starter. And so to now get him, and he was going, like I said, it's QB 15 around pick 120 overall. I think you have to leap a couple rounds now as his ADP adjusts yet again, but it's still possible to double stack him, whether it be with A.J. Brown or Julio Jones, or honestly, I think Anthony Furcher's still in the mix. This may be getting a little too galaxy brain, and it may actually only be for large field tournaments, but the discount you can now get on A.J. Brown and Anthony Furcher, even though if Julio Jones is absent, we just go right back to their initial outlooks, right? And like, there's a reason why Julio Jones was a risk in trading him. There's a reason why the Falcons had to trade him. And it's because he still is an injury risk right now. He's going to be 32 years old. Again, was only healthy for 7 games last year. And so to get A.J. Brown, who we know has top 12 upside anyways, right? 9th in fantasy points per game among wide receivers last year. But then if Julio goes down, you are looking into, again, possibly the wide receiver 1 overall, but at a discount. And so I actually don't mind just taking that double stack discount away from Julio if need be.
I love it. I absolutely love all of that. Given that, as you said, he missed 7 games, and I get that he played 14 in, 6 seasons straight, but there's always that questionable nagging tag. And it's like, even if he played 14 games, some of those, it seemed like he was just kind of like a scarecrow decoy out there, wasn't fully healthy. So I'm with you. I'd much rather have A.J. Brown still. He did fall from my wide receiver 5 to my wide receiver 9. Just because it is, as you said, he's going to cannibalize targets. When you have a talent like Julio, there's no doubt about it. Julio's been like right steady as my wide receiver, 16, 17 in that range. I don't think this changes it too much. I am a little bit worried about the Titans' outlook losing, as you mentioned, Arthur Smith, given how efficient they've been with him. Todd Downing just had a horrible year in his 1 year as coordinator. But I mean, obviously when you have Julio and A.J. Brown, how can you screw that up? Like, that is about as good as it gets. So yes, Tannehill, he went from someone I was kind of fading, given that, as good as he's been. I was worried that without Arthur Smith, he might take a regression. But again, you can't screw up whether you're Todd Downing, whether you're Ryan Tannehill. You can't screw up those 2 receivers. So I'm with you at QB 12, same exact ranking I have in that. I love all that. What about the Falcons for you? I mean, is this just going to be Calvin Ridley, like wide receiver? As we all were saying with, A.J. Brown, 200 target potential. Now that's looking almost like the potential for Calvin Ridley. Like, who else is around him? I mean, Kyle Pitts, of course. But let's kind of talk about some of those Falcons. What do you think for Ridley? What do you think about Pitts? Kind of what are we seeing there, the vacation now that he's left?
It is an intricate situation because you would think, well, we don't think. We know Calvin Ridley's now a smash, right? I moved him up from my wide receiver 7, I believe, to wide receiver 5. I still don't, and could be wrong here, but still don't believe he should be in the top tier with the target hosses like DeAndre Hopkins, Stephon Diggs, Tyreek Hill. But we know that last year without Julio, he did have a 31% target share and 51% of the team's air yards. The thing is, for the offense as a whole and that outlook, Ryan was bad without Julio Jones last year. The offense just cratered without a true second receiver. Ryan completed 61% of his passes, averaged 1.5 yards per attempt, fewer without Julio Jones in the field. So I'm actually concerned. Having said that, maybe they do have a second true receiver in Kyle Pitts. Kyle Pitts' outlook is impossible to comp. I'm actually still finalizing my tight end tiers. They're not on the site. They will be on the site perhaps by, I'm going to say Friday. I think I'll be done by Friday, and then they'll all be finalized, and I'll make one final update. But I actually put, because I have it on my end now, Kyle Pitts in a tier of his own behind the top three in Travis Kelce, Darren Waller, and then George Kittle, because we don't know enough about Kyle Pitts to put him in the first tier. But we know he's probably better, and the opportunity will be there to go below that with the Dallas Goedert, TJ Hawkinsons, Tyler Higbees, Logan Thompsons of the world. Pitts, if you want to comp into a tight end, like only 5 tight ends ever have eclipsed 850 receiving yards as rookies. And only one, Mike Ditka in 1961, has ever gone over 1,000 yards as a rookie. And then if you want to comp him to Calvin Johnson, which also makes sense, Calvin Johnson was still learning the game. It wasn't that great as a rookie. He had 750 receiving yards. So I just don't know what to do with him outside of drafting him as the tight end 4 in FFPC tight end premium leagues. Whereas I think Pitts is still too rich for my blood in underdog drafts right now.
Yeah, I'm with you there. It's pretty tricky. I did love how, creative Arthur Smith had been with his tight ends, but Arthur Smith is now gone. You see Jonnu line up in the backfield. Oh, well, no, he has Arthur Smith rather at the Falcons now. So I did love that, that carryover, given how he's a tight ends coach. He's used his tight ends so well. Even Delaney Walker back in the day, like 4 straight years of 850 and multiple TDs. Like, he's one of the only tight ends to do that in recent history. So I do love the offense he's walked into. I love the vacated volume. The track record of rookies is not great at the tight end position, as you were indicating there. But when you got a Calvin Johnson comp from a lot of people, there's a reason why he's going as high as he is. I'm right there with you. I actually have Hawkinson in a tier with him, just given the volume he might see.
And that's fair. And honestly, like Pitts, it's just tough because I would like to move him higher. But again, we just don't understand the comp. And maybe this is wrong, but I treat it as a blanket statement to just be very wary and not take rookie tight ends seriously, because when they come to the NFL, it makes a lot of sense why they struggle. They're learning 3 positions. They're learning offensive line, wide receiver, and their own. Maybe Arthur Smith dumbs the game down and makes it that much easier for literally the best tight end talent we've ever seen, or at least we've seen since Vernon Davis. Again, Vernon Davis wasn't good as rookie year either. So it's going to be very fun to see how it plays out. I am just wary of the fantasy side of it.
For sure. I did love the quote I recently read in The Athletic about him, though, where Smith's, quote, unquote, Arthur Smith's creative mind was evident when he lined up first-round pick Kyle Pitts on the right side, and then in the slot, Ryan threw to him more than any other receiver in the first 2 pass drills. He didn't look like a tight end. He looked like a new car that Smith wanted to take for a test ride. Now, I get OTAs, short seasons, like I get it, but that's still encouraging. Like, it's not a bad thing that he's moving all over the place, that he's already forging that rapport. So it could be bananas. Yeah.
And by the way, like between them, because, Julio Jones, of course, vacates opportunity, and Russell Gage, everyone's going to him. The issue is, I think that ship already sailed. You should have been drafting Russell Gage, knowing that Julio was going to get traded in that month, 2-week span, which I was doing in Matt Ryan double stacks just in case. But right now, Russell Gage isn't a player that leaps a tier because of talent. It's strictly opportunity based. Even last year when Julio was out, he averaged 8 targets a game, but only 10.5 fantasy points per game because he's not. I mean, it sounds mean. He's not a talented player. He's a special team slot guy. You have to have immense volume, like a Jamison Crowder, let's say, to truly deliver as just a exclusive slot receiver. And Gage is not that type of player. So I would not even be going to that route now. I'd be waiting, if you're double stacking Ryan and without Pitts, for the very last round and just grabbing Olamide Zaccheaus and hoping he lands in the slot this year.
Interesting strategy there for sure. One last stat to throw out before we move on there. And we're going to talk about the vacated volume you're alluding to. But Calvin Ridley, just to return to him real quick, and the reason he is now a complete smash. He's seen 9+ targets in every game without Julio the past 2 years. His pace when he sees 9+ targets is 110 receptions on 174 targets, 1,633 yards, 11 TDs. That would be 343 fantasy points, 21.41 per game. Only Devontae Adams would have had more last year. So goes to show you what he's done with that opportunity as well. So very exciting about just all these people. I know we're a little all over the place with the impact, but that's what happens when you get a monster like Julio landing there. Yeah. And Derrick Henry, by the way, nobody saw more stacked boxes the last 2 years. I mean, is this guy going to run for 20 touchdowns this year with more open field and more scoring chances? Like, what about the run game?
I mean, Derrick Henry also, it's just full of outlier players on Tennessee. That's the thing, because Derrick Henry has handled 827 touches if you include the postseason the past 2 years, which is an anomaly player. But the thing is, if there's a player who would not break down from that workload, it is the anomaly that is Derrick Henry. Plus, you have to remember, like, he's not your average running back. He was basically almost out of the league a year and a half into his career. It took Dion Lewis getting injured for Matt LaFleur at the time, the Titans OC, to finally unleash Derrick Henry over the last month of the season. And we haven't looked back since. He's been truly the king of rushing. And so maybe he'll break down, who knows? But the fact that he doesn't catch passes, that we can honestly say he may never see 40 targets in his entire career at running back, makes it hard to put him in that top tier among those touch-based workhorses.
It is tricky, yeah, for sure. And the volume in the pass game certainly is not going to be any better with Julio there. I don't know if it will matter, though. After 2 straight years of leading the league in carries and yards and rushing TDs, I don't see any reason why that won't be the case yet again. As you mentioned, the guy's a tank. Like, if there's going to be an anomaly, it's Derrick Henry for sure. What is up, you fantasy wolf? Thanks so much for tuning in. If you haven't already, share your thoughts in the comments, check out some more videos, and join the newest Wolfpack by subscribing below.